Okay, so let's dive right into this. At the heart of pretty much every market, every system, there's this constant tug-of-war going on. On one side, you've got competition, that chaotic, messy, survival of the fittest struggle. And on the other, you have monopoly, the dream of total, absolute control. Today, we're going to unpack the entire life cycle of that power. Ralph Waldo Emerson really hit on something powerful with this one. He's basically saying that nature itself resists this kind of concentration. You know, like water, systems naturally want to find a level playing field. So, a monopoly? It's kind of an unnatural state, something that has to constantly fight against the current just to exist.
And right away, that creates this fascinating puzzle, doesn't it? If nature itself is designed to pull monopolies apart, why is building one the ultimate goal for so many businesses? Why would you work so hard to create something that the world is actively trying to dismantle? Well, to get our heads around this, we first need a really simple way to spot a monopoly.
Let's use something I like to call the bridge test. It's super simple, but incredibly effective. Imagine you need to get across a river. The first question is a no-brainer. Is there only one bridge? If the answer is yes, then ding, 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 you're looking at a potential monopoly. A single gatekeeper controls the entire path.
Okay, but question 2 digs a little deeper. It gets to the why. Can you build another bridge? This probes all those barriers to entry. Is it just too expensive? Is it physically impossible? Or maybe, did the owner of the first bridge get a law passed that says nobody else can build one? This tells you if the monopoly is natural or totally artificial.
And then there's the final, and maybe most important question, can you swim? See, this isn't about competing head-on. It's about making the original bridge completely irrelevant. Can you invent a jetpack to fly over the river, a submarine to go under it, a teleporter? This question is all about the potential for radical disruption, the kind that can shatter any monopoly overnight.
So, this all leaves us to a core idea. Competition isn't just an option, it's the default setting. It's the natural state of any healthy market. It's the evolutionary battlefield where you either adapt or you die. A monopoly, on the other hand, is an artificial creation that has to fight tooth and nail against nature just to survive.
And this fight, this struggle, follows a predictable cycle that almost every monopoly goes through. It kicks off with wide-open competition, then a player uses differentiation to achieve dominance. But then it decays into rent-seeking and stagnation, before, finally, it gets shattered by disruption. And the whole thing starts over. This is basically the roadmap for our entire discussion. All right, so let's start at the very beginning. How does one company claw its way out of that messy, competitive free-for-all to become the only one left standing? How does a market go from having tons of players to just one? If we look back at our life cycle model, you can see exactly how it happens. We start in phase 1, pure competition, with everyone duking it out. Then a few players start to stand out. They're doing something different. That's phase 2, differentiation. And eventually, one of those players gets so far ahead, they hit phase 3, pure dominance. A lot of the time, what's driving this is something we call a winner-takes-all market. The core idea here is really simple. Success breeds more success. A tiny little advantage gets magnified over and over again by a positive feedback loop. More users make your product better, which then attracts even more users, and the cycle just keeps feeding itself.
And the outcome is, well, it's pretty extreme. Just look at this. In these markets, the winner doesn't just get a slightly bigger piece of the pie. No, they get almost the entire pie. The runner-up gets the crumbs, and everybody else is left fighting over the dust on the floor. This isn't a mistake. It's just how these systems work.
The textbook example of this has always been Standard Oil. I mean, John D. Rockefeller started out by being genuinely better. His company was more efficient, more innovative, but once he achieved that dominance, the game changed. His focus shifted to ruthless, predatory tactics designed to eliminate every single competitor.
And that's the pivot right there. That's the dark side of monopoly. Once a company has won the game, its incentives completely flip. The goal is no longer about building a better mousetrap, it's about protecting the fortress you've already built.
Let's go back to our life cycle wheel, because this is where we enter the really corrosive phases. Phase 4, rent-seeking, is when the monopolist spends all its energy building higher walls, lobbying politicians, suing competitors, buying up any potential threat. And that almost always leads to Phase 5, stagnation. When you're safe behind your walls, why would you even bother trying to get better?
This gets at the deepest, most fundamental cost of monopoly. And it isn't just about higher prices for you and me. It's that monopoly literally stops evolution in its tracks. Without competition, there's no selection pressure. There's no need to adapt, no need to innovate. The entire system just gets stuck. AT&T is the perfect case study for this. For decades, they were Ma Bell, a regulated monopoly. And sure, the phone service was reliable, I'll give them that, but innovation for actual customers, it had ground to a complete halt. All the really cool breakthroughs were happening in garages, not at the giant Bell Labs, because AT&T had zero incentive to rock the boat.
Let's make this really concrete. In 1983, the year before the government broke up AT&T, a simple 3-minute phone call from New York to Los Angeles cost $1.50. Okay? Remember that number, $1.50.
Now fast forward just 10 years. The breakup has happened, and a flood of competition has entered the market. That same exact call now costs 50 cents, a 2/3 price drop. That is the real-world, tangible impact of letting competition back into a stagnant system.
Because here's the thing, no monopoly is permanent. The very act of getting fat and happy, of becoming stagnant, creates the perfect conditions for your own downfall. The world keeps changing, technology keeps shifting, but the comfortable monopolist is always the last one to notice.
And that brings us to the grand finale of our cycle, Phase 6, disruption. Sometimes it's the government stepping in, like with Standard Oil and AT&T. Other times, it's a new technology that just makes your old bridge completely irrelevant. Either way, the monopoly gets broken, and the cycle resets, beginning all over again with fresh competition.
But this monopoly model isn't just for business. If you take it to its absolute political extreme, what you're really describing is a totalitarian state. It's just a collection of monopolies, a monopoly on ideology, a monopoly on power, a monopoly on information, and a monopoly on the economy. It's an attempt to eliminate all competition from every facet of life.
So this brings us to the core challenge, really. It's not about choosing between pure competition or pure monopoly. The real goal is to find a healthy, dynamic balance between these two fundamental, opposing forces.
In this slide just captures that central debate perfectly. On one side, you've got someone like the tech investor Peter Thiel, who argues that competition is for losers and the real goal is to innovate your way to a monopoly. On the other side, you have this core principle that competition is the natural state that keeps systems healthy. And you know what? They both have a point.
Which leaves us with the ultimate question, doesn't it? This is the tightrope we all have to walk. How do we create incentives for that world-changing innovation that often results in a temporary monopoly, while making sure those monopolies don't become permanent fortresses that stifle the very progress they were born from? That right there, that is the enduring puzzle.